In this daily drop, we're going to talk about white backgrounds, gray backgrounds, using color on backgrounds, and a whole bunch of other stuff. So let's go. So when I did the episode a couple of days ago with the 2 panel lights on the 400mm Arca Swiss plate, I remembered that there's an episode I've wanted to do for a long time, which has to do with the difference between using a white background and a gray background, especially when you're putting color onto them. So that's what we're going to do today. I am going to start with the setup, which right here you're taking a look at the panoramic background from Manfrotto. It's a 13-foot wide by 7.5-foot tall background. Right now I'm just holding it up with a couple of C stands and Mathellini clamps. And this is playing as sort of the white cyc background. And then the setup from a lighting perspective, very similar to a couple of days ago. The key light is the Kelvin Epos 300, which is going through the Octa 3, and that's our main source. Everything's now set to 5600 Kelvin as opposed to 3200 Kelvin the other day. A little kicker light, which is a hair light, and then there's 2 4-foot PavoTubes from Nanlite, which are cross-keyed with the grids for that white background. So that's what I'm using to cross key there, and that's going to give us that white cyc look. In terms of camera, pretty simple, a7C 2, and I'm using the Batis 85mm lens. So I'm using it full frame and at an f2 at f400 ISO. The key's set to 5%, the kicker light set to, again, ridiculously 0.5%, but when you're in a completely controlled environment, you can get away with stuff like that. It's when you've got lots of ambient light that you need to start punching the power up and all of that fun stuff. All right, so my daughter was kind enough to come in and be talent again, so we did a very simple setup. And what I want to take a look at first is just sort of the basic frame with that white background with what is a little bit different from a couple of days ago. We have split key, so the light's coming from the side as opposed to more loop lighting, which is what we had before, which is more camera side. And that's really what we've got. You can see the background sort of falling off to gray because she has a little bit of separation from that white background, and we're not throwing any light on it. Well, not yet anyway. So here we are. Boom. There you go. Cross keying, 100% white background, and that's the look that we have right there. All right. Let's see it again with the lights off, meaning the cross key lights off. And now it's time to start playing around a little bit with color. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to go ahead and just leave it as a gray background. And I'm going to go into CCT mode with the 2 little panel lights, which are basically uplighting that background. And we're going to take a look at first 5600 Kelvin, which is matching the overall color temperature that we're using. Now we're looking at 7,000 Kelvin, so it's going to read bluer in the background. Now 10,000 Kelvin, even bluer. And then just so we can see the whole contrast, we're going to go down to 3,200 Kelvin on those 2 panel lights. And they are at full brightness right now. We just want to really see what it's like when it's hitting that white background. And then here's where we really start to see what happens with color when we introduce that onto a white background. So I'm going to go over to the HSI or hue saturation intensity mode. I'm going to keep saturation all the way up at 100, the intensity of the 2 lights at 100% output. And what I'm doing now is just going around, starting at blue, I'm going to go around the hue wheel so you can start to see what those different colors look like. And you'll see a little bit of white reflective behind talent, and that's to be expected because it is a reflective material. And you can sort of see what's happening now with those saturated colors. And once we get back to that blue, we can now start to see what happens when we bring gray into the background as opposed to white. So I'm going to walk that gray background in. Now this is the EzyFrame, which is from Manfrotto as well. It's about a 7.5 foot by 6.5 foot frame, and it's got a neutral gray fabric. What's great about these frames is you can skin them with these different fabrics or covers. They're stretchy materials, so when you put them on and you tighten them, they don't really have any wrinkles that read on camera, which I love. And let's go ahead and really see here that when we bring this gray in, that the way the color's reading is definitely different than with white, because we now no longer have this reflective surface the same way we do with white, right? Black is going to absorb, white's going to reflect and bounce that color that is taken on from it, and then gray is going to be neutral. So a neutral gray background is fantastic for color. So let's go ahead now and do the same thing and take a look at that hue wheel. And as we go around, you'll see there's a lot more intensity and saturation to the colors as opposed to when we were projecting it on the white background. And so basically, you know, if you want a background to be a particular color, neutral gray, middle gray is definitely the way to go. That's something I've wanted to do for a long time. I'll definitely put links down there to those Manfrotto products. I'm using that panoramic background and that EzyFrame for a lot of the stuff that I'm doing. You can, of course, pick up other fabrics and backgrounds, and there's a lot of stuff out there. Yeah, hopefully you've learned something. The goal here is always education. Don't forget to, and I'll see you on the next episode of The Daily Drop.